average that locals take home. This budget was not about just getting by, it was about living well, going out, and actually enjoying the experience. It also leaves a lot of room for the potential observations for investing, because once you have acquired your citizenship there or your permanent residency there, and you are allowed to establish bank accounts and investment opportunities there, it would make more sense that you had extra money that wasn't in your emergency fund that could be utilized to invest while over there. Yes, it is fantastic to continue to have your investments rolling back in America if that's where you come from, but you also want to be able to have the capabilities, if at all possible, to countries as well. That way, if the Asian market is doing better than the US market, you can benefit from that. It further aids you in your ability to set up a more comfortable and stable retirement. He says, what would you consider a good return on investment on any profit? Well, specifically across the board, the standard expectation is roughly 10 to 20% is the market expectation. More than that, you're looking at a large quantity of effort or a large quantity of risk. Yes, you can get an average of 30% depending on what you're doing. And then also there's other scenarios where you could end up getting 50% or even 200% if you are able to get it at a wholesale for a really good deal. And then you're able to sell it for double or triple what it's worth. For example, if you were buying a bunch of used cars from an auction for a third or an eighth of its blue book value, you could put a little bit of money into the repairs, charge double what you paid for the vehicle, and still be under the blue book average, where you're making back the cost of the vehicle and making back that same amount as a profit. Used car dealerships utilize this, where they actually bring the car up to market value and then they negotiate down the price so that the customer feels like they got it on a steal in comparison to other areas that sell it, but put you on a finance scenario, throw interest on top of it. After you've put your down payment on the car, you've already paid for the value of the vehicle, and everything they get from you profit. So your monthly payment, the down payment, which allows them to go and buy more inventory, and they just rack in the profits while you're making notes on the car. Other scenarios like real estate, typically you walk away with $10,000 to $20,000, no matter how much the property costs. You walk away with $10,000 to $20,000 after you finish paying back everybody that fronted you money to buy the property. You can have situations where you pick up a property on a tax auction and flip it for 100 times more than what it's worth, where you can pick up a $250,000 property that's currently valued at $100,000 that's being auctioned off for like $5,000 or $10,000 worth of back taxes, and you can put 50 grand into it, where you've only spent like 60 grand on the property, and now put it back up on the market for $300,000. That's possible too. The more you have to cover the cost of the investment opportunity, and the less investors you have to depend on, the larger your return on investment will be. Because you have to remember, there's a difference between profits on the deal versus return on investment. Because a lot of people will say, well, if I didn't use any of my money on this deal and I got $10,000, that's maximum return on investment, because all I did was put up effort. I didn't use any of my money. I didn't use any of my assets, and I got back a bunch of money, right? So when you start talking about the stock portfolio specifically, though, you're looking at typically 10% is stable, 5% or 7% might be a good growth scenario that might still pay dividends, but 10% is stable. And then the higher you get above that, the more volatile you're getting. So when you start getting closer to 20%, where I found a lot of stocks that are closer to 20%, those stocks are more volatile. And the volatility is going to come from, over the past 30 years, those stocks used to be worth more. They have dropped down in value. And now when we're walking into it, they are excessively low, where they're almost to the identification of penny stocks, where we can put up less than $10, buy a bunch of shares, and we're getting more money per share back, where we're getting 19-20% return on investment for a lot of these stocks. So it depends, because you're asking me what's good return on investment on any profit. Well, as long as you get back 100% of what you put into it and you're getting back a profit, it doesn't matter what venture you're going through and what percentage of a return is, depending upon the effort. If you're getting back 100% of what you put in and additional profit on top of that, so 110%, that's all of your investment plus 10% profit. 120, that's 100% of what you put in plus 10% profit. 150 or 200, then that would make a lot of sense. But if you're putting in, for every $1,000 you put in, you get $500 back, that's a loss, and I don't think that that's good. I was just doing a profit percentage on my skill $1 watch, sold for $100, profit $99. Percentage return came out to be 9,900%. Fantastic. It happens. There's a guy that's going around to the hardware stores, to the Home Depots and stuff, and scanning a bunch of products, and he finds products that should be sold for $20 and $30. They're sitting on the inventory floor, valued currently at 1 cent. Dude's buying these items, bringing them back to the house, and potentially selling them on Amazon for $5 less than the market price, because those items are still valued at $20 or $30, $40 from everywhere else. But this particular store, for some reason, has them sold for 1 cent. So you can buy 100 of them while they're at that cheap value, take them and go put them up on resell them up on the market for far more than what you paid for it. If you pick something up for a penny or a dollar, and then you're able to sell it, it's only worth what other people are willing to pay for it. And where it was when you paid for that dollar, nobody was willing to pay more than $1 for it. And where you bring it to, which is what you'll see at car auctions, is that they'll take the vehicle out of one city and state, move it to another city and state, put it up for auction, and that vehicle will be worth more in a different auction than what it was in the city it was seized in. So it's always good to note that you're able to take something from one place and put it somewhere else and turn you a profit. But in all realisticness, the behavior of the average investor is looking at getting back all of their investment and a little bit of profit. Now, the bigger question is going to be when we start talking about investments, because right now we're actually talking about South Korea, not investments. But when we start talking about investments specifically, we're looking at how long do you get that return? Because if you bought $1 million property, you're not getting back $1 million the next day. So that's the rule of 72. How many years from now will it take for you to recoup 100% of what you put into this? And when will it be pure profit? And you have to put together a business model that shows that this makes sense, that inside of the next 5 or 10 years, depending on how much money you're putting down, that you're getting a return on your investment. Short bed trucks sell good in California? Probably so. A lot of Mexicans love short bed trucks. I don't know how well it's going to sell now with ice all over the place, but yeah. Anybody in construction, anybody that's building houses and using flatbed trucks to haul people in to bring the workers to work, or they're using those trucks to haul materials with to go to the construction site, you're going to use flatbed trucks. So any short bed truck is going to be beneficial for construction workers or agriculture individuals that are putting crops into the back of the vehicle and stuff, instead of inside of the bed of the back seats of the vans. Because outside of a flatbed truck, the next best thing is hollowing out a third row seater van and using the van as an enclosed flatbed truck. Same dynamic. Resourcefulness. Now back to South Korea, because that's what you wanted me to do. We got this budget because it was not about getting by. It was about living well and living comfortable and actually enjoying your experience. So we put this test together to give you guys comfortable, sustainable lifestyles if you decided to go to either South Korea or Japan. So for the method, to make it fair fights, the conditions were kept as consistent as possible. The experiment was conducted in the two mega cities, which is Tokyo and Seoul. While they are the most expensive options, there are also a lot of foreigners that want to live in those particular areas. Um, Apartments were sought in similar neighborhoods, not tourist traps, but very popular areas, well connected residential areas where individuals loved the locals, and they're loved by the locals when the expats are or foreigners are in there. In Tokyo, the location was the uh, Setagaya ward, and in Seoul, it was the Mapo district. Both are known for great cafes, restaurants, and easy access to public transportation. He says king cabs. Yeah, that's fine. King cabs are good too. Uh, where are we flying off to? Well, you've got to get your passport and get your blood pressure medicine because, I mean, we're going to fly to another country. I don't want you to have a heart attack on the way over. And then probably, I think it would be fair for us to fly off to the Philippines first. That way we can contract us a wife to over to South Korea and Japan. If we're not getting the difficulty with getting citizenship out there, might as well go to a country that's not going to be as difficult to get your citizenship, and then grab you a little partner that's going to aid you with getting to the other two countries, and you can go to the other two countries on vacation. You can go there, go to Japan for 3 months, go to Seoul for 3 months, or you can do the extended stay scenario and try to pull off 6 months in Japan and 6 months in Seoul after doing 1 year in the Philippines. But that's 2 years outside of the United States. So, you got to be straight. Your house has to still be there when you get back. So you got to make sure that you're putting money aside for the taxes. You've got to make sure that you're putting money aside for the property insurance. If you're going to have any, you want to put money aside for the utilities to make sure that the utilities are there. And then also you want to make sure that you pay for landscaping, because you're going to be gone for a long time. Nobody's going to be there cutting the grass. The grass will be taller than the house. Code enforcement will put enough sanctions on the house where the house will be auctioned off because you're not there to take care of it. So you want to make sure that you set everything up and take your valuables and put them in safe storage, and set everything up so that you can basically abandon your house for 2 years, and then when you come back, it's still there and everything's already paid for, and the grass is nice and cut. So it takes a lot of negotiations, but it is still possible. Now, the lifestyle between these two countries is going to be the same in both places. About 60% of meals are going to be cooked, 40% are going to be eaten out. Public transportation is used exclusively, and this is going to be avoiding pricey taxis, because the taxi prices are going to be different in both countries, and they're going to be a lot pricier than getting your exercise walking, using your hover round. And owning a car is going to make any budget significantly expensive in the other countries, because you have to get your driver's license in that country, because your U.S. driver's license doesn't fly in their country. And or if you're going to get a motorcycle or whatever, you're going to have to go through all the processes, and buying a vehicle out there, it's almost like buying a vehicle in America, because you're looking at $20,000-$30,000 for a brand new vehicle over there. And there's just no getting around that. So without dropping a bunch of money on a vehicle, especially if you're not going to be there forever, public transportation, maybe the occasional Uber, but minimizing the getting around or the cost of getting around. A budget based on this is set for socializing, entertainment, and a few other random purchases. Most importantly, every single yen and every single won is going to be tracked in this. So every coffee, train ticket, grocery one went into spreadsheets, and this analysis is a result of that obsessive tracking, a personal data-backed answer to the question, which country is really cheaper? Because I know me and Michael were talking about this a few weeks ago. So let's start with the category that can make or break any budget. It is always and will forever be housing. It's the biggest single expense, and the difference between Japan and South Korea were clear right away. Now, one of the funny things about housing, because we seek to buy the most expensive property that we can afford, where we're only focusing on the mortgage, not the end cost. If we can afford a mortgage that's $3,000 a month, we'll get one instead of getting a house based on size and utility. If there's only two of you there, or if it's just you by yourself, you don't need a 5-bedroom house. You really only need like a 1 or 2 bedroom house, which means that you don't really need a 5,000 square foot house. You can probably survive off of a 1,500 square foot house. And for those individuals that have a 1,500 square foot or 2,000 square foot apartment, which is a pretty big apartment if it's a 2,000 square foot apartment, a lot of people are living between 5 and 900 square foot apartment. And if you had a 1,000 square foot house on a 3,000 square foot plot of land, you don't really need much of nothing. You don't got much grass to cut. You could pretty much handle that house the way you would handle an apartment, and those houses wouldn't run you more than 100 grand. And the mortgage on that would be closer to $600 a month instead of paying $3,000 a month. You could get you a 3.2 in certain cities and states around the United States and find yourself getting a $110,000 or $120,000 house and not see that property costing you $3,000 and $4,000 a month to pay the mortgage on a house that is bigger than your apartment. So if you're paying $1,500 to $2,000 a month for your apartment, and you can buy a house for $500 less than that, why not buy a house? But if you take all of the extra money from investing and you put that into, instead of having it be taxed, if you put that money into the mortgage, that would actually make more sense. So if you're putting that 40 grand away every year into the brokerage account, and then say you're getting back your 20% and your 20% is taxable, that 20% ends up, instead of being reinvested back into your brokerage account, you can take that 20% and put it onto your mortgage. You can find yourself paying your house off sooner, where the difference between expanding your brokerage account through taxation and reducing the interest cost, bringing your 30-year mortgage down to a 5-year mortgage or a 2-year mortgage, saves you a lot more money and boosts your credit score. Because if you could pay off a $100,000 installment loan in 2 years or 3 years, for the next 7 years after you've paid off that installment loan, your credit score takes a huge leap into the positive side of things. So you got to take that stuff into consideration. But another thing is that if you've paid off your house, or you got something cheap that you can afford and you paid off your house, and you're still young enough to travel, now you've only got basic utilities that aren't going to be impacted by your absence. Drop the insurance on your vehicles, make a plan to travel after your registration expires, and then so you don't have to turn in the plates. You can keep the plates on your vehicle, keep the vehicle parked at your house, drop the insurance on the vehicles, not spend any extra money on car insurance, and then fly to another country. And now you're only spending like $50 a month to maintain your house, plus the cost of taxation on your house. And if you got you a cheap $100,000 house, depending on where you're at, you might not have to pay more than $500 a year worth of property taxes. And if you got a homestead tax credit, they might cover that $500. And if it didn't, you probably only owe $50 a year for the property taxes. And if you get a tax exemption scenario because of your age, you don't have to have the increase of insurance of taxation on that, where all of these things play to your favor, where you end up not having to pay for the house in America while you're paying for the stay in another country. Instead of having that $500,000 house that's like 2 stories, 8 bedrooms, 3 offices, 6 toilets, yeah, it's a fancy house, but you'll be paying for it for 30 years. Instead of having that 30-year requirement, where you got to pay this flat rate in America and then spend another $3,000 in another country. Because like when Dylan was here, he said that he had to have the dynamic of $6,000 in order for him to go to another country, because his base rate in America was $3,000 plus the other $3,000 that he would pay in another country, which makes sense to maintain stay. But if he could put $6,000 down on his stay in America, pay that house off first, and then go to another country, now you only need $3,000 to go to the other country because everything is covered in America. So that's also a plan, a business plan. So part of your 20-year plan, if you and your partner are coming together, y'all are getting a house, y'all are building all this wealth, you decide to pay off the house first and then travel the world. If you own the house before y'all leave the country, and now y'all are sitting on $250,000 or $500,000, and you have enough money sitting there to cover all of the expenses while you're gone, or all you have to do is log into the computer and get it done, or make a phone call or an email and get it done, where the bills are being paid for back home, that $2,000 a person that you bring to Korea, you're able to do everything you need to do. Michael says, do you think if the interest rate on mortgage was dropped to 3.25%, would that start the housing market? No, because one of the biggest problem that we have in America right now is not the housing market itself. The biggest problem that we have in America right now is poor people making poor choices. So the issue that they're going to have is that their credit is bad because their payment history is bad. Their payment history is bad because they're used to robbing Peter to pay Paul. They will let a bill run late and they'll pay it with their next paycheck, because as long as they pay the bill before the following month or 2 or 3, as long as it doesn't get cut off, they're good. So they'll let a bank account run negative for 2 years. They will let a light bill run negative and be behind for 2 years. They'll let a car note be a little bit late and then catch up the payment and then let it run a little bit late. They will let anything that I'll get it later. They'll let their phone bill get charged off and then they'll pay, or not charged off, but cut off, and then they'll pay to reconnect it and all this other stuff. And that extra money, the extra interest and all of this other stuff takes money out of their pocket. Then they'll borrow money from a payday loan or cash advance place to catch up on some of the bills. But now they owe the cash advance place plus interest. And they didn't have the money when they borrowed the money, and they have even less money when they go to pay that place back. And now there's a vicious cycle where they're making more money so that they can catch up on debt. And since they're making more money to catch up on debt, it doesn't really matter if you brought the interest rate down to 1.15%. If your payment history sucks and your credit score is below a 500, because your payment history sucks, you got a bunch of charge-offs, you got credit cards at 99% or 200% in some situations, where the full credit line is overdrawn, and now you're just making monthly payments on the interest of a maxed out credit card to keep it from being charged off. This is the lifestyle that 77% of Americans live, and they're not going to qualify to get a house even if the interest rates were lower. Individuals that are more fiscally responsible, if it was brought down to 3.25% and they had it like a 650 or higher credit score, yeah, because the down payment would be less, the monthly payments would be less, more people would aim for a house, because with the interest rates being at 3.25%, because like veterans that can get that 40-year extendo loan, they get that 40-year extendo loan after they have defaulted on their original loan. They can't get the 40-year extendo loan by default just because they're a veteran. It used to be that way, but that changed. But if Donald Trump put out that 50-year extendo loan, even if they put out the 50-year extendo loan on a fixed rate 5% interest for 50 years, your $300,000 house might cost you $750,000 after you finish paying for it over the course of 50 years, but it would only cost you $5,000 down, if that, because some places do down payment assistance, and then you would end up paying like $700, $800 a month for 50 years instead of paying $3,000 a month for 30 years. We covered that on the show a few months ago. And so the lower interest rate doesn't help if their credit history is bad. But the lower interest rate would make housing more affordable because people would be able to pay the monthly premiums of the house after they qualify for the house. Sounds like chasing a dollar. Wait, that's my car you're towing. That's exactly what it's like. That's exactly what it's like. So I call it chasing the dragon. What happens is you're getting up out of bed every day, going wherever you got to go to get money, doing whatever you got to do to get money. Your presence pays you, and you're willing to do far more than necessary to get paid because you're an overachiever with a good work ethic, but bad decision making skills. Then the little bit of pennies that you get for all that effort that you put out isn't enough to cover the spread. And then you're going to take that, you're going to cover as much as you can, and then you're going to borrow against a stone to cover the rest. You're guaranteed to pay them back because you've paid them back before, but you're always paying them back with interest, so you're giving away extra money. You're going to keep doing that until the bottom falls out of the barrel. It's going to happen. You're going to go out and put a lot of effort into working 2 jobs, putting in overtime on both jobs. You're going to work until you're exhausted. If you get into a relationship, you're typically getting into a relationship with a person that also is financially challenged, and it's convenient for the two of you to put your money together and reduce your cost. Now you and your partner are spending money to cover the spread and trying to tackle this debt together. However, both of you have bad decision-making skills, so you're really still living at 99% of your income, even though you just cut your overhead in half, because instead of having 2 separate households to pay for, now you only got one, but you're still spending 100% of your income between the 2 people, not saving a dollar. You can't get a flat tire and be able to do anything about it, because you get a flat tire, that flat sits in your car in the trunk for like a year and a half before you go and get another. You'll be riding on ball tires, and then you start going to used tire shops, buying 1 tire because that's all you can afford, when you should have had a full set of brand new ones and a full-size spare in the back. There's a lot of things. You start letting your car maintenance go because you can't afford it, but you own the car, we'll ride it till the wheels fall off. And all of these bad decisions lead you to having more and more expenses. There is something you're going to have to pay that you're not going to be ready to pay. And that's going to be your problem. That's going to be your bottom line. There are things that you have to pay that if you paid it when it was necessary, it wouldn't be a problem down the line. But because you didn't pay for it when it was a thing, now you can't get around it, and now it's an emergency, and now you're dealing with a situation where you have to take money you was planning on spending on something else and take care of it now because you let it slide. And that's why I tell you guys that there's literally, when you think about it, nothing in your life that can happen right now that is so much of an emergency that you need money in the next 72 hours. Nothing outside of a bad decision like going to jail. That's it, getting bonded out. However, 72 hours, you get a bond adjustment if you didn't do something egregious, and you might walk on the charge. They typically set bail between 24 and 72 hours after you being arrested. So instead of me trying to bond you out within the first 4 hours of you getting to jail, paying maximum amounts for whatever the charges were, wait till the judge adjusts your bail and then go and bail you out. But that means I don't need money today to deal with whatever it is that is supposed to be such an emergency. I might need it by the end of this week. I might need it by the end of next week, but there isn't a so-called emergency that requires you to have access to capital right this second. The only true thing that you will need is the difference between having access to digital currency when there's a power outage, when you need access to cash. That's like the only difference. That's the type of emergency that you just can't get around. But as long as there's power, if you've got a credit card, you've got extra gas in your car. If you've got cash in the bank and you've got a debit card, you've got cash in your car. So if you get into a crash, you might need money for an Uber, charge it to the credit card to get you home. That's if you survive the crash and you don't go to the hospital. Have somebody with a car pick you up, because typically friends will give you a free ride if you just got out of a car crash. But yes, people are going to be chasing the dollar. He said, thought the point of going to work was to pay yourself first not everyone else first. But that's the weirdest thing. 77% of Americans are poor because they go to work to pay off their debts first. And then if they have money left over, then they will do something for themselves. They're not going to pay themselves first by the meaning of invest in your future, invest in extra security, invest in long-term savings. They will entertain themselves with whatever's left over. So they'll work all the time, put in extra time at work so that, and they'll count their hours because they're getting paid by the hour for their presence, and they'll count the hours. Oh, I've done 65 hours with this overtime hours. Now I should have approximately X number of dollars after taxes, and that will cover this many bills. Now I can go home and not have to go to work until my next regular scheduled day. Or if they don't have enough, oh, I need to pick up more hours because I don't have enough to pay my bills. If you've got a partner that's doing the same thing, well, my check will make us to the next person's check. Special shout out to the battle zone. My check will make it to the next person's check, and then their check will carry us the rest of the way, kind of situation. And if y'all are offset, where you're getting every other week and your partner is alternating and they're getting every other week, your household is getting a paycheck every week. And if my check can last us till the next person gets paid, then we're good, is the mentality of a lot of financially challenged couples. So if we live the lifestyle of pay yourself first, then you would be in a position where you're living under your income level, where you would be 30-50% of your income is your overhead, and 50%, or in some situations 30%, depending on what's going on, because if two people come together, it might be 72% of the total income between two party income. But that still means that 30% would be put away first, and then everything else would be managed under the other 70% or whatever. And if people had that mentality, then there wouldn't be broke people in the country. The shutdown wouldn't matter. Essential workers wouldn't be pissed off. Furloughed families wouldn't be mad. Um, uh, 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 Government contractors wouldn't be frustrated because they would have extra money lying around. That has happened. No electricity and no cash. Do I write a store in IOU? No, no. Actually, you bring cash, and that's why I say everybody's emergency fund right now in the era of solar is to the magnitude of put it into the bank, put it into a high interest savings account. It won't get you a lot of interest, but it'll get you a little bit of interest. Put it, and that's what everybody tells. But in all honesty, for every $5,000 you have in your savings account, you need $1,000 at your house. So that if there's no power, you're not going to the store during a natural disaster talking about buying essentials with just your credit card. You could put $200-300 in your pocket in small bills and ride out there thinking you're going to put it on your card. And when you see that the power is flickering, if lights are flickering, credit card machine's not working right now. You know what? For almost 60 years, Waffle House was a cash only operation. During Hurricane Katrina, Waffle House was the only building functioning outside of a hospital because they were cash only. If they would have been credit card machines, they would have either had to give food away or nobody would have been able to eat because there was no power. So when you think about you need to put some money into the house, literally in a safe somewhere in the house, don't touch it. When y'all watch Good Times, the Evans, you see the refrigerator in the kitchen, they got the money jar on top of the fridge. They keep cash in the house in case of an emergency that doesn't have power. That's how you take care of that. We are funding deals with 500 to 580 score. Well, you can fund certain real estate deals for families that have higher down payments. So this is the problem. So people believe that you cannot get a good home without a good credit score, and then other people believe that you can get a house that you're satisfied with a bad score without figuring out the other half of it. So here's the deal, and you can verify this, Battle. If you have a good credit score, your down payment requirements are going to be less, your interest rates are going to be lower. If your credit score is bad, your down payments are going to be higher and your interest rates are going to be higher, which means that your notes are going to be higher. It is more feasible for you for your overall monthly payments is to have a reasonable down payment if at all possible. And then the best credit score effective for your scenario so that you can have the lowest monthly payments overall. If you have a 500 or 580 credit score, you might be able to get picked up, but you're going to be getting picked up on the higher end of 7% or even closer to 8%. But if you had a better score, closer to 700 or 720, you might find yourself with lower interest rates like 5%. And that 2%, that 2 to 3% difference on $500,000 for 30 years, that's a massive quantity of money. And then depending on your credit score, depends on whether or not you qualify for down payment assistance programs. So there's a lot of things that play into factor with that. So yeah, you can get a deal funded with a 580 credit score. You can buy a brand new car with a 580 credit score, but your car payment might be $300 a month more than somebody with a 720 or a 685. So I'm not saying that it's impossible for you to get one with a 500 or a 580. But what happens is because you're more high risk, the lender is going to leverage your risk against you and encourage you to put more money down. Instead of turning you away, they will force you to put more money down to secure the loan. Even with a brand new car might be 20 grand. They'll extend it to 7 years instead of 5 years. You're paying almost 45 grand because of the interest rates. They might ask you, instead of putting down 10% of the 20 grand, which might have been $2,000, they might ask you to put down 4,000 or 10,000 to cover the high risk of you potentially losing the deal. So lower credit scores doesn't mean you won't qualify, but a lower credit score means that you're going to have to put a lot more good faith money up front to close the deal. And then you're going to have higher monthly payments throughout the deal. Managing your credit report, managing your credit score is going to mean that you're going to have a better opportunity to get lower interest rates. Even your car insurance is dependent on your credit score. So if your credit score goes up, your interest rates or your monthly notes or your car insurance goes down. Now you're not paying as high car insurance because a 500 or 580 credit score, they're going to have higher car insurance rates with every insured. You're going to feel the same pain when you're dealing with property insurance. So it's in your best interest to try to manage and reduce your unnecessary debt and then leverage your credit in your favor. So when you get close to the end of your billing cycle, pay it down to like $1. Let that $1 roll over on the end of the billing cycle, pay that $1, and then run up the card. You can do that. You can ride 80% of the card for 20 days out of the billing cycle and then pay that bad boy down to $1 and then let that $1 be at the end of the billing cycle every month. And you would be at less than 1% utilization every month. Your credit score would be phenomenally higher than what it would be if you were running at 99% of your credit score on a regular basis. With the credit score, what can you purchase? Yes, 500 is a low credit score. With a credit score, your credit score is utilized to get advanced capital to purchase items that you can't afford to pay for cash up front. So with a credit score, you would get a house, you would get a car, you would get student loans. That's what you're picking up with a credit score. Your credit score could help you buy crap these days that you can't really afford to buy when they're doing those micro loans, offering marginalized payments so that $1,000 WWE title that you shouldn't be buying is broken up to $100 a month payments until you pay it off, kind of situation, micro loans. But that also works out with mechanic loans, because if you can't afford to pay for the repairs on your car, you could take out a small $1,000 or $2,000 loan and then pay $200 or $300 a month to fix your car until you pay off that loan, which allows for you to fix your car and not have an outrageous budget where you cannot get your car back. But you also could have a extra $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 worth of money that you don't need towards your standard of living, and you could just charge it to your credit card, take the car out of the shop, and then make that payment on your credit card instead of putting the money into your brokerage account. So there's a lot of different things that people can do with their credit if they're responsible. But if they're not, it's always going to be a problem. So, and yes, 500 credit score is extremely low. Technically anything less than a 600 is not much accepted. 580 is usually the lowest a lot of places go. But depending on hardship programs, if you're between 500 and 580, they'll work something out with you, depending on what you're trying to get, whether it's a used car or a fixer-upper house. But again, the amount of money you're going to qualify for with a 500 credit score is going to be far less than the amount of money that you'll qualify for with a 685 or a 650. That's going to be the difference. The battle, are you a used car lot? I don't know. He jumped in with that credit score at some point during our conversation. So I don't know if he was talking about houses or if he was talking about cars. But I know that he jumped in and like, well, we handle 500 to 580 credit scores. All right, I believe you. He definitely can close the deal, because if you do a buy here, pay here, a buy here, pay here car lot could care less if you got a 500 credit score, because it's in-house financing. If you're picking your cars up from the auction and they're going to put down the down payment on the car, where you bought the car for like 500, you put 500 down into the cost of the car, and now the car itself, debt to you, might be $1,200 or $1,500, including the mechanic fixing the car. If you take that and say, well, buy here, pay here, we even take credit scores of 500 and we'll put you in a car and finance it for you, in-house financing. Give me $1,500 down. You can drive away with this $5,000 car today. Well, it only cost me $1,500 to get the car, tow it here, pay the guy to fix it, buy the parts. It only cost me $1,500. So if you give me $1,500, your first payment to me is pure profit. The car is already reimbursed. So a buy here, pay here that's going to do a $5,000 cars, perfect scenario for anything between 500 and 580 credit scores, because shit, nobody else will finance you. I'll finance you, and I'll do you one better and put a positive review on the 3 major credit bureaus, because you're actually paying me good. That's something that people don't think about. Special shout out to Max the Poser and Ohio. Apparently, you're not buying a home with a 500 credit score. That's what I'm trying to. ain't nobody giving you. If it's like a $30,000 fixer upper, if it's if they still got the foundation is still there, maybe one wall is still standing, but everything else you got to put it back together. They might, but on average, now you're looking at 600 or better to get you a house. In most places, I don't know many lenders that'll throw you down on a 30-year nothing with no 500 credit score. I don't know most new car dealerships new car dealerships that'll let you walk in there with less than a 600 credit score. 580 is the lowest they'll let you do if you're putting down a significant down payment. 20% of the car, 30% of the car, half the value of the car. The more you're willing to put down, the more they're willing to take you in, and they're still going to charge you the top end of interest rates. So let's start with the category of housing. First, Tokyo. It has a reputation for being crushingly expensive, with images of tiny coffin-style apartments that cost a fortune. A lot of people, even Nicole was here, she thought the place would have been cramped. To stick to a budget, living in central Shibuya or Shinjuku wasn't an option with $3,000 a month. Instead, a classic Japanese style studio was found for about $550, like 550 US dollars a month. And it's going to be a single room, maybe 25 square meters. They do things in meters, not feet. I don't remember the conversion from meters to feet. Michael can probably do that calculation for me, but 25 square meters is a pretty decent sized apartment. It's a one-room apartment with a small kitchen unit in there and a tiny bathroom, and the bathroom might be separate for from the rest of the house, but everything else, it might be an open floor style scenario. And while small, it can be clean, functional, and in a great neighborhood. So finding something like this affordable in a good part of Tokyo requires some digging, but it is doable for older, smaller units. He said Tokyo can fit 4 people in 240 square feet. Now, how many meters, how many squared meters is 240 square feet? Help me crunch those numbers. I could probably do it, but I don't want the screen to start flickering again. I start opening more browsers, and this computer is going to be on overdrive. One room or community toilets? Well, no, it will be a community shower, not a community toilet. And there's a difference there. So a community shower, there isn't a shower there. There's an individual room with a toilet that you can flush and everything to that effect, but there's no tub, no shower, anything to that effect. And you would go to the community showers to go and take a shower. There isn't that I don't know of a situation where you're in an apartment that doesn't have a bathroom in it and you've got to go down the street to go use the bathroom. I'm not familiar with that. Outhouse style, I'm not familiar with it. From what I understand, there's a bathroom inside. They might have those even cheaper, but from what I understand, they have the toilet inside of the apartment, separate from the rest of the unit inside of the apartment. So like one room, there's a toilet there, and then the rest of the floor plan is an open floor plan where the kitchen and the living room are all within eye view of one another. You can walk from the kitchen to the living room without touching any walls, kind of situation. Okay, so 0.9 square meters in a foot. So if you crunch those numbers, you're looking at 240 square feet being how many meters? How many square meters? Because when I found a 25 square meter apartment, you're talking about 240 square feet. I'm trying to do the correlation between the two because I have reason to believe, based on your observation, that the 25 square meter apartment is larger than the 240 square foot unit that you're talking about. And yes, they can fit 4 people, 4 adults, because they will do like futons and lay them on the floor next to one another. 4 people can, think about your living room. 4 people can sleep on the floor in your living room. Everybody's like, On the floor. Yeah, 4 people can sleep on the floor in your living room and not have a problem, and you wouldn't need the rest of the house. Americans just want their own personal space and lavish beds, so everyone has their own individual room, right? And over in Asia, not only do they have the 4 futons on the floor, they would have dividers in between the individual people so that you are looking at a wall between you and the other person sleeping on the floor. So, man, Michael, I thought you would have gave me that information already. Okay, there we go. So, 22.29 square meters in 240 square feet. So when I said 5 square feet for $500, that is actually about 3 square feet more than the 240 square foot that you're talking about. Right. So 20 by 12. So if we added like 3 more feet, that might be like a 22 by 15 or something like that, which would be roughly the size of a living room in a reasonably sized apartment. Like it could be like a 20 by 20 living room, something like that. And if you think about like if you think about an apartment that has like a kitchen and the living room next to one another, and that was the whole apartment in Tokyo, that would kind of be the observation, which is what 10 steps in any direction. It's not that much, but it's a lot when you don't really got a lot going on at home, because this culture is more outdoorsy. We're more stay at home. Okay, at least we are after the pandemic. Now, in Japan, the rent is only half the battle, because a major hurdle for foreigners is the system of upfront fees. There is key money called Riken, a non-refundable gift to the landlord, often on 1 to 2 months of rent. Then there's a security deposit, which is shinkiken, and an agency fee. Now, this could have easily been a $2,000 upfront payment, but for the experiment that we're going to be talking about today, only the monthly rent is going to be counted, but it's a huge hurdle to be prepared for, because if you're trying to go to Japan and you understand that you might need $2,000 to $3,000 up front to move in, even though you can live on a $3,000 a month budget, you might have to bring $6,000 with you to cover any upfront costs to get you started, and then your monthly living expenses will be covered thereafter. So using 20 by 12, you end up with less than a wheelbarrow on wastage. Hold on, let me let me double check this, man. I was trusting you to give me some information here. 25 square meters. Uh, okay, so 25 square meters is 269 square feet. So you're so let me get this straight, because I want to produce real facts here, because Michael, I was trusting you to be an adult today, and you kind of you took advantage of my trust here. So 25 square meters. I'm gonna put this here so that y'all can see it. Mm, is 269.09 square feet. This is the true dimensions. Okay. So With 269 square feet, you're looking at yeah, like the standard hotel. So it is close to what you were talking about, to 269 square feet. Um, is considered really small in America. It's going to be like a micro apartment or an efficiency studio, found in a dense urban center. Space comparable to a large master bedroom or a standard hotel room. Living quarters often requiring multi-functional furniture like Murphy beds to maximize the limited footprint. So, or a studio apartment. So it would be, yeah, it would be 20 by. Actually, I'm looking at like 15 by 18. It'd be like a 15 by 18, or like you said, 20 by 12, which would be like a hotel room. So it's not going to be like a 3 by 2 or six sheets of paper or anything like that. It's going to be like a full size room. Yeah, a small cabin with acreage. It would be something like that. Yes, that's being more realistic. But it's still for 500 bucks, $550. And yeah, you can fit four people in it. Sometimes you start off with two adults, and then you'll have two adults and at least one or two kids, and they would do the multifunctional furniture, the fold away stuff, the um, furniture that you can utilize as storage space. So instead of us having a hollowed out chair that we sit on for comfort, they would have a chair with drawers in it or something to that effect, where they're storing stuff under the chair, or they won't even have a chair at all, where you would sit on the floor or sit on um, a chair that's just like the seat in the back, where you can just pick that up and put it in the corner somewhere so that you have the open space. So when you see a lot of the new technology, that is the nifty furniture, but you can spread the furniture out and hide stuff into the furniture and put it all back to, that's because those guys in Asia was putting that stuff together. Because us in America, we'll take a folding table and sit it in the middle of the room and take up so much space, and then put up five chairs next to it and take up so much space. And there's empty space underneath the tables. There's empty space underneath the chairs, and we don't do anything with it. But they maximize space. And one of the reasons why they maximize space is because they're capable of living in smaller space. But when you think about one person who spends most of the time out of their 2,000 square foot house in their master bedroom, that's the same size as this whole apartment. You just got to understand, if you put a full size fridge in your master bedroom, you've got your shower, your propane stove, your fridge, all in your bedroom. You don't have to come out of your bedroom. It's a mini apartment. It's exactly what they've got going on in Asia, except the greed of space for an American is going to figure out that that's too small. But what are you doing in there besides sleeping? If you have family functions, a lot of the times out there, they would have family functions out at a nearby restaurant. But they do have family functions at the house where small groups of people come over and take up the whole living room space, and everybody sit there and eat, and everybody's having a good time. But that is um, it's not the kind of situation where you're so cramped that you can't stretch your feet out. It's not like riding in the back of a transport van for a police department. You know what I mean? At least two functions. Yeah, they gotta have is it would have to serve at least two functions. Yeah, at least two functions, if not more than one function. Right. So when we start thinking about going to Japan, you got to understand that gifts are going to be financial gifts are going to be considered a tax there. So you just got to be prepared for that. But choosing an apartment, luckily, one that would waive that key money is not common. You can do that. The kitchen has to have just 2 burners and a mini fridge. It doesn't have to be a big old 28 centimeter fridge. And the best part of this particular observation is going to be the location, because it's a quiet street, 5-minute walk to the station where you can take the subway to get to where you got to go, and surrounded by local shops on the street and a little bit of entertainment. People pay $100 plus just for 100 square feet in New York. People pay more than $100 for 100 square feet. You might be thinking about like $1,000 for $1,000 or more for that 100 square feet in New York. But yeah, in New York, it is the same culture as Hong Kong or Tokyo, or Seoul, where public transportation is key. Almost nobody owns a car unless they are the upper middle class. Everybody takes the subway or catches a cab. They budget for that, and if they have a flat, it is a studio apartment or a penthouse suite kind of scenario that they share with 5 roommates by themselves. They have a 100 square foot apartment by themselves. But if they have like a 1,000 square foot apartment that has like 3 or 4 rooms, they have 3 or 4 roommates, right? Or 2 or 3 roommates. Sometimes 3 or 4, because they might have a boyfriend in there and 3 roommates, or a girlfriend in there and 3 roommates, something like that. So now let's cross the sea to Seoul. The capital of of South Korea, is going to be Seoul. Also has a daunting house reputation. An apartment found in similar neighborhoods for a bit less, around 520 a month. And for that price, the unit was in Officeto. These are modern buildings combining apartment and offices. And they are super popular with single soul people. And what the way this would work is that you would have a business on the first floor and the apartment on the second floor kind of situation. So instead of the mother-in-law suite being at your house, the mother-in-law suite would be at your business, which is convenient, because if you run a grocery store or a restaurant and it's a 2-story or 3-story building, the first floor is the business and the second and third floor is the residence, and you and your kids and your grandkids and everybody can stay upstairs, and then y'all can just come downstairs and run the shop, right? So it's convenient. The Officeto is going to feel a little bit newer, slightly bigger than a Tokyo place, with a sleek built-in kitchen and a more modern bathroom. But like Japan, South Korea has its own tricky rental system. The common one for foreigners is WOLS, which means a huge security deposit plus monthly rent. So while the rent is going to be about 520, the deposit is probably going to be a staggering $5,000, which is way more than the $2,000 from Japan. This money is returned at the end of the lease instead of Japan, because Japan is $2,000 non-refundable. Seoul is $5,000 refundable, but it's a massive amount of cash to have tied up until you leave. Which again, remember I told you, if you're planning on being there for 3 months, you're going to be bringing $6,000 a month worth of money. If you were planning on staying there for 3 months, you needed $9,000 to stay, you would have brought 18,000. You would have just took 5,000 and put it down on a security deposit. See how well I'm coming prepared. So out of the extra $9,000 that you would have had, you would have 4,000 extra dollars left, because you wasn't expecting to put that 5,000 down for the security deposit. Pay attention now. So there's another system there that's gonna be called Jeonsin, where an enormous deposit, sometimes over $100,000, is paid to live rent free. But that's for most foreigners who are, because if you put up 100 grand for a place that you would normally be paying $520 for. You give them 100, you stay there as long as you want. Yes, sir. $5,000 for a damage deposit. But I mean, shit, in America, you be putting up $500 to $1,200 for the damage deposit, and then you end up with $5,000 or $7,000 worth of damage over 5 or 6 years worth of being there. Holes in the walls, tore up carpet, stains, burns. You know, stuff happens when you're staying in it. But nobody can say that the house that they got when they got it is in the same condition it was in when they first got it at the showroom status. It's got its share of wear and tear into it, and you're just like, fuck it, I'll fix it before I leave. And then when you're like, certain damages, and you just consider yourself, well, fuck it, there goes the security deposit, because they're probably going to eat that up with this bullshit right here. Hopefully they don't ask me for nothing else after they take my security deposit, and that's perfectly fine, you know. But 5,000 up front, making sure that you don't burn a building down, it is what it is. So $100,000 to live rent free. It depends on how long you're going to stay there for that $100,000, but yeah, that could be a thing, because at $520 a month, that's 10 years or more, because you'd only be spending like $6,000 or $7,000 a year to stay there. You offer them $100,000. That's like live there for the rest of your life. So, for more often than not, the Wolson is the only real option, is to give them like $5,000 down. So who's going to win in the housing round? Surprisingly close, but based on just the pure monthly rent, Seoul would have won by a slim $30 margin. When you take into consideration the security deposits, where Japan wanted $2,000 down and Seoul wants $5,000 down, Japan might win with the upfront cost. But when you think about how, if you're only going to be here temporary, and when you leave, the 5,000 gets returned to you in Seoul, Seoul still wins, right? So it's going to be providing a slightly newer, better conditioned environment, bigger place for less money. And when you're considering those different deposits and potential fees, it starts getting a lot more complicated, depending on whether or not you're going to be a permanent resident there and you're losing out on $5,000 to get in versus $2,000 to get in, or if you're going to leave after a small portion of time. So for the purposes of this comparison, this round would specifically go to Seoul, but just barely. And this is a small win, but it's just the beginning. You should treat your apartment as if you own it. That would make me happy. Well, if you treat it as if you own it, there's a lot of people treat their house and their car the same. Use it till the wheels fall off. Use the house till the walls fall off, right? Use the house till the roof collapses, but they don't fix anything. So if you take good, and a lot of people treat their bodies the same way, that I'll keep working until my body falls apart and I end up in a wheelchair. So there's no comparable mindset to say, well, you should take as good of care as your house as you take care of your car, or you should take as good care of your car as you take care of your health. You should practice preventative maintenance on your apartment, whether you own it or not, or your house. You should do preventative maintenance on your car, and you should do preventative maintenance on your health. Exactly. People treat everything, including themselves, like trash. And when you recognize that, when you rent something, that's one of the biggest concerns that landlords have. And that's one of the reasons why renting to a homeless person is such a red flag for a landlord, is because a homeless person has nothing to lose. What if they tear my place up? But what if you give them a place they greatly appreciate it, they build it up, they use that to get on their feet, and they're giving you way more money than everybody else to make up for the fact that they lived on your property for free? Yeah, it's very optimistic. But the pessimistic mindset of the average individual is, what if they just use my apartment or my house as a drug den and tear my place up? right? And that is going to be the real reason why uh, uh, they charge so much money for these security deposits. Now, after securing a place to live, the basics has to be sorted out: electricity, water, and gas. And the one thing no remote worker can live without, which is fast, reasonable, high-speed internet. This category is not flashy, but it is a steady drain on the budget. And the cost say a lot about each country. Starting with Japan, the Tokyo studio was pretty energy efficient. The month of the stay is going to be pretty mild. There's going to be no need to blast the AC or the heat, which usually drives up electric costs. Like for those of us that was experiencing that blizzard style weather over the last couple of weeks, seeing our light bill jump up from um, low hundreds to under 100, going all the way up to triple digits, where you're looking at 150, 200, $300 for the month, where before the cold front came, we were dealing with moderate to low cost for living. So before we get into that monthly breakdown, he says homeless person's credit score would not allow that. I mean, jokingly, that's an observation, but to the magnitude, uh, some homeless people have bad credit because that's one of the reasons why they're homeless, is because they lost it all. And whether they lost it all, went through bankruptcy, or they lost it all and they didn't go through bankruptcy, they lost it all. Now, turn of events was that some individuals have excellent credit because they never used it. They don't have any debts. They don't owe anybody any money, but they got kicked out of the house that they were in. The person that they trusted the most threw them out on the street. They didn't have to go through a court and get any type of eviction. They just left. That person kicked them out, locked the door, didn't even have to change the locks. They just left, and now they're living on the street. So there are some homeless people with really good credit, but because they don't have an income, they can't rent anything. So taking a homeless person in and giving them a place to stay could get them back on their feet, because all they would need is that stable housing first in order to find that stable income. And then after that, they could um, double back and start paying. And we covered that on the show before plenty of times, how if there were programs that were designed for that, people could in fact build up their communities by targeting the at-risk environment and potentially providing enough resources for them to be able to get back on their feet and start reincorporating themselves back into society, which would also increase the revenue in society, because the more people that are capable of working, that start working, the more uh, money is being circulated in your economy. So instead of them just receiving resources like food stamps and other such things, you would see them in a position where they would start benefiting from working and bringing in an income, and then buying stuff on their own instead of stealing it, which saves money in the economy because you're not taking a financial loss on the stolen products. You're not spending a lot of extra tax dollars on the legal system, prisons, and everything to that effect. And they would start paying their way, which would have them paying for the taxation, which would help out with the economy more. But not a lot of people care about that, because their concern is, what if they destroy my place and just use it as a drug den? Well, you should screen your homeless people and make sure that they're determined to get on their feet. Because the ones that aren't determined to get on their feet are not going to want to show any initiative to get up off the street, because they're quote unquote free. So think about that. Now, the monthly breakdown here is going to be for Japan: electricity, a whopping $45 a month. Gas for the stove and hot water around $35 a month. Water for a reasonable $25 a month. We would almost never see prices like this in America if we're living inside of the residence. And the real shock is going to be the internet. Japanese tech hubs have high-speed fiber connections that cost about $47 for the month, and more than what you would expect for anywhere else. But you're looking at total in Tokyo $152 for the month for all utilities. Most people's light bill in America is double that. Over in South Korea, the modern uh, hospital in Seoul is also well equipped. The country is famous for its pow pow, which is hurry hurry culture, and that applies to its infrastructure. So the cost is going to be pretty similar to Japanese electricity. That is a bit higher at $50, probably because of the apartment is going to be a little bit bigger. Gas is going to be a little bit cheaper, around $30, and water is still going to be about the same price as $25. The big pleasant surprise is going to be the internet. South Korea is known for having some of the fastest and cheapest internet in the world, ridiculously fast gigabytes, and the connection cost is only going to be $22 a month, less than half of what is going to be paid in Japan. So when you're adding up the monthly utilities for Seoul, the total comes up to about $154. And that's wild how close these two come in numbers. Despite the huge difference, the internet price and the other utilities balance out everything. Japan's total is 152, Seoul is 154, $2 difference for utilities. It's a dead heat, a statistical tie, technically, but this indicates that for the basic non-negotiable bills, there's practically no financial difference between the two individuals or individual countries. And this was a very key discovery for me when we were doing this research. But it meant the real answer to which country was cheaper would be founded in the daily choices, which is food, transportation, and free time. All right. So we call that round a tie. Utilities made everything become a tie. Now, this is the category that blew the whole experiment out of the water. It's completely turned on its head. It's where assumptions were shattered, and it is the single biggest reason for the final results. For anyone planning to cook even some of their own meals, this is the most important part of the analysis. While housing and utilities were a close race, filling the fridge in Tokyo versus Seoul was completely different stories. Starting in Japan, there's a myth that Japanese groceries, especially fruit, are ridiculously expensive. And while it is possible to find $100 square watermelon, the reality of day-to-day shopping is a whole different story. So for a month in Tokyo, the total grocery bill is going to be about $400 a month, which is what we get in America. And this is allowed for most meals to be cooked, snacks to be purchased, and the kitchen to be kept stocked. A typical grocery run includes a loaf of fluffy shakupan bread for $1.50, which is cheaper than what we get for our bread. Gallon of milk around $5.67, which is about what we pay for ours. Chicken and fish and a lot of fresh veggies. So the key here is to shop like a local, skipping fancy department stores and hitting up neighborhood supermarkets and small family-run shops. Perfect looking apple might cost a couple of bucks, but a bag of slightly bruised ones was far cheaper. And Japan has a secret weapon for eating cheap. The Kanabin or convenience store, quality of food at a 7-Eleven, Family Mart, or Lawson's is on another level there. So for a few dollars, one can get a surprisingly good meal from an inagari rice bowl or bento box with grilled fish, and they become a go-to for quick lunches, saving tons of money. You said a water bill on average in America is $49 to $60 per month. Okay, but the total utility bills, uh, electricity is on average $152 per month. Uh, okay, I could challenge both of those, especially when you're talking about the cold weather right now. Water bill is going to be probably a little bit more than that, something closer to $75 a month when you start talking about washers and dryers in the house. And then when you start considering up to 4 people in the house, based on your previous statement about four people fitting in a one house in Japan. If you had four people uh, in the house, you're looking at more laundry being done, more water being ran. If you have women living in there versus men, women run more water taking showers than men do, so you're going to have a larger water bill. Electricity is going to be based on the household. If they have central air and heat, their light bill on average is going to be closer to $200 a month, not $150 a month, especially with the 23 to 50-degree weather that we had in North America right now because of the cold. So not likely to see it closer to $52. And then if you live in some of those states that's getting electricity from Canada, you're going to see a 25% increase on your bill. So you're likely over 225, 230 for places like Minnesota. So it's not, I can't say that the average light bill is going to be $52, but if you're looking at $200 for the lights and the water, hypothetically, if you threw down another $65 a month for the gas bill, you're still looking at double the total cost of living in Seoul with the internet. And then when you try to find an internet company in America, you're looking at most internet packages at almost $100 a month for the house. And they try to do a bundle thing where it's like 150, where you get basic cable and internet bundled together. So now you're looking at spending almost $400 for basic utilities. It is cheaper in Japan. Uh, no cats, but cats are a good pet in Japan because they ignore you most of the time. It's harder to get around with dogs over there because they don't have service animal laws in Japan like they have in America. So while you can take your dog certain places in Japan, you got to leave your dog in certain places in Japan or leave your dog at home, and that could cause issues with you getting around in Japan. Um, I'm not saying that some locations are higher. These are averages. I have not crunched 100% of the numbers, but I'm more than sure that the averages are slightly higher. Is what I'm saying. I don't doubt that you kind of got a pretty decent approximation. But what I am saying is that considering right now in this cold climate that we have right now, electricity is going to be a lot higher right now because those individuals that don't have gas, that are mono electricity, are going to be burning more electricity for the cold, for their heaters, versus individuals that have gas. Individuals that have gas would still have another 65 or $70 a month worth of gas bill on top of their electric bill. So you're still looking at almost $300 a month for basic utilities in the United States before you add internet. So you do have a pretty close assessment. Some places much higher due to location. The high divide by the low comes out to an average. Well, yes, the extremely high light bill for the 52 bedroom mansion versus the efficiency kind of gives you an average. But when you want to quote a national projection, you would better quote a median, not an average. A median would be the middle number. The average is skewed. More people getting the cheaper than the less people getting the more expensive. The median would be the middle number, which is the more likelihood for it to occur, give or take a margin. So if we were to do a little bit of research, we could probably come to some guesstimations as to the approximation of utilities, but it is somewhat in that range. But it also is going to depend on usage, and it's also going to depend on the house size, and it's going to also depend on the quantity of individuals in the house size. So if you have a generalized statistic of $152 for the light bill, that might be $152 for the light bill for a single person. But then if you think about a two-family household or a three or four family household, you might start seeing that light bill getting closer to $200. And if you're looking at $152 for a single person household, and you expect the expenses of adding a partner to that being a 25 or 50% increase, you're looking at, if it was 152 for one person, you're looking at adding an extra $75 for the second person, and that still puts you at 225 or 250. No, it's not. The medium, the same as the average. It's not. The average is adding up the total number of numbers and dividing it by the total number of numbers. That's not the same. The median is the middle number. So the average of 500 is how many different variables. If you had 10, if you had 50, and you added that up 10 times to get 500, and you divide that by 10, that's an average. But if you have from 1 to 50 and the middle number is 25, that's the median. And while the average of adding 50 10 times and dividing it by 10 and getting 50, and the median being the middle number, which is 25, the difference between the two is going to be depending upon the highest number versus the lowest number in the average, and the total number of numbers, where the middle number is the most likely probability. So I could be wrong. This info is from Google, not me. No, I respect that. I respect that. Whenever we want to do something, whenever we want to figure something out, one of the first things I tell you guys to do is get out there and go and ask the Google lady. So I can double check that. I'm gonna pull see if our internet is working good right now, and I'll pull it up, and we can discuss. Um, shit. I could figure this part out here. Give me just a second to, because now it's gonna flicker. It's so in the United States, hold on, we're gonna ask the Google lady for you and verify. Um, there are some that are $153.44 as of November of 2025. So you're looking at a normal in between 140 and 155 for last year. Let's look at in the last 30 days with the cold front. Because as when I was discussing this, I was telling you that because of the cold, the light bill will be slightly higher. But it is not the same. The median and the average are not the same. They can be at close proximity, but mid hundreds, give or take. Give me just a second, because as soon as I start pulling up a second browser, everything started coming to a screeching halt here. All right, hold on. We've got, is that 1 to 100 would be 50, and 1 to, no. See, that's what I'm trying to tell you. 1 to 100, the middle number would be 50, and the average between 1 and 100 is not still 50. It is definitely not still 50, because you're going to be adding 1 to 100 and then dividing it by 100. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand that. But it's okay. It's okay. Your logic is a little outdated, but that's okay. Let's look at January's numbers for electricity so far with the recent cold front. You're looking at over $160 in 2025, and then if we look at the last 30 days, even higher. $170 is what we're looking at right now in the last 30 days. So, as I was saying, while $150 might be kind of 150 $253 might be kind of on par, the understanding is that when I was referring to the fact that because we had that cold weather that just happened, that people are going to burn more utilities in order to get past that cold weather, it was going to be the thing. He's okay. You're right. Darn it. Well, I'm rarely wrong. You got me on that Old Spice research from like before I was alive, but when you add up all of the numbers, the sum of all of the numbers divided by the total number of numbers is an average, and the larger the last number is, throws off the average. And when you are picking the middle number is going to be the most likely to happen, like 50 percentile, 50-50 chance that it's going to happen that way. And that's going to be more accurate to the masses than the most extremes on either end, which means that if you're operating in the 75 percentile, you're more likely to be closer to 50 than what you would be closer to 100. But the average, if you add from 1 to 100 and you divide that by 100, you're going to get either a smaller number because you have all of the small numbers, you're going to get a smaller number than 50, or you're going to get a larger number than 50 because you're adding up all of those numbers above 50. That's the thing. The average is itself divided by itself. The average is, yes, adding up the sum of all the numbers divided by the total number of numbers. So that's going to be different. Okay, so now that we get that, it's still, when you're looking at $170 for this last 30 days worth of electricity, and if we do stay around $60 for the water bill, you're looking at $230, and if you put down another $70 for the gas bill, you're looking at $300 for the utilities for the last 30 days. We just verified that in our evaluation, we would still be 152 or $154 for all utilities and the internet, just the lights. Just got to keep you honest. I appreciate that. I love that. I love those challenges to make sure that I'm on point with my facts, because I wanted this podcast is going to have the reputation of only bringing you the facts, never bringing you personal opinion and never bringing you rumor. But after we asked the Google lady, we're able to verify that yes, on average, roughly closer to $170 a month is what we're looking at right now. And with everything added together outside of the internet, excluding the internet, you're looking at almost $300 a month. And while you're looking at almost $300 a month in Japan, you got all your utilities and the internet for $150 a month, which is about half. So when I said that about 20 minutes ago, I was spot on. Now let's head to Seoul. This is where serious stickers shock everyone. Multiple sources have confirmed that groceries in Seoul and Korea, or most of the sources that are confirming the groceries in South Korea, are much more expensive than in Japan. Some saying by almost 36%. So over the research that I've done, the results back this up completely. So for the month in Seoul, you're trying to cook exactly the same way that you would have been cooking using the same grocery bill in Japan. That would cost you $550 in Seoul. The massive $150 increase is going to be more than what you would have gotten in Tokyo in comparison to Seoul. So the price difference was everywhere. The same loaf of bread was $1.50 in Tokyo, cost closer to $2.86 in Seoul. So $1.50 in Tokyo, $2.87 in Seoul. Gallon of milk, $7.67. Beef, fruit, and even some vegetables were consistently more expensive. Part of this is going to be because South Korea has to import a lot of its food. So the country is more mountainous and having less farmable lands than Japan. So many common items are shipped in, and that is added to the cost. So unlike Japan, Korea's convenience stores didn't offer the same quality of budget-friendly meals. So one can grab a kimpa triangle or cup of ramen, but the variety wasn't quite there. And this meant a full grocery shop was needed for almost every meal, and those costs add up very fast. So the victory for groceries is an absolute no contest for Japan. So while they had to tie for utilities and they had, wait, what do you mean you're right? And you're making minimum wage, you're broke. Okay, so you're straw manning about being right about being broke, or are you saying that you I don't understand what you're right about. You were misguided about your assumption about the average for utilities. I provided clarification on that. Japan is cheaper right now, as what we're talking about with groceries, than Seoul, but Seoul is cheaper for residency than Japan. And then they had a tie on the utility bills because there was a $2 difference. So I'm not sure what you're right about. But if you want to be right about uh, making minimum wage is going to keep you broke in comparison to your standard of living, I can give you that if you want it, but that's not what we're talking about. So it's not, it wasn't a debate. It's like a straw man statement, like us talking about business and finance, and then you tell me it's dark outside. See, I was right. It's dark outside. I mean, yeah, it's dark outside. So you're right about that, but everything else kind of a little bit off the mark. You kind of missed the plate. You kind of few feet short of the touchdown. You kind of missed the goal. You kind of rebound a shot. I can keep throwing up metaphors. I can give you a blue participation ribbon, but you definitely missed the grand prize. So the verdict for groceries is an absolute no contest win for Japan, because saving $150 a month on food alone is a huge swing in the budget. Probably going to be thrown on the cost of living. Um, it wiped out the tiny $30 rent average on the Seoul standard of living and then some. So this was that first major shock of the experiment, and it proved the real cost of living isn't just about fixed expenses. It's about the daily purchases that add up all the time. I right. Well, yeah. Well, you're right about you're right about a side topic that you're right about a side topic that we weren't talking about. So I'm gonna give it to you. You're just pulling my. You could be pulling all kind of stuff on me, and you're gonna give you a participation ribbon for it. It is what it is. I give you a participation ribbon because it's like, oh yeah, if you're making minimum wage, you are definitely poor. So that's a true statement. I can't debate that. Um, if you're making minimum wage and you're living in a middle class standard of living, you are living above your financial means. You're not just poor. You're not just broke. You are extremely chasing debt, and you're going to potentially find you a romantic partner or a buddy that's going to help you cover the cost of your standard of living so that you're not homeless. You're going to end up in a toxic romantic relationship with a person, or buddy scenario where you're not able to escape that scenario, specifically because you can't afford to leave. So now you're treating each other like shit because you can't afford to get away from each other, but you dislike each other. But you can't afford to go anywhere else because at least while the other person might be an asshole, you can guarantee that they're going to pay their share. Sometimes it's fun to make you dance. Well, I'm still wearing pants, so whenever I gotta get up and dance, I have no problem. I come to the podcast fully dressed every day. Now, after the grocery shocker, transportation swung the pendulum right back in the opposite direction, because if there's one area where South Korea completely beats Japan on price, it's getting around town. So the difference here is just as dramatic as it was with the groceries, but this time in Seoul's favor. So starting with Tokyo, Japan, public transit is a modern marvel. It's clean, ruthlessly punctual, and extensive. So you can get almost anywhere. But that world-class service has a price. For 1 month, there's $150 that can be spent on transportation. And this is covering monthly passes for the main route and individual tickets for exploring around. A single ride could cost you anywhere from $1.50 to $3, just like Heartline in Tampa, Florida, depending on the distance and if a switch between train lines was necessary. Then there are taxis. Taxis in Tokyo are famously expensive. The meter starts high, around $6, just like Uber, and climbs scarily fast. A simple 5-mile trip can easily cost you $25, just like Uber. Um, they we try to avoid those completely when we're doing this because they're a budget wrecker, but just wanted to mention them. Then when we start comparing that to Seoul, South Korea's capital has equally amazing transit systems where Seoul subway is very clean and efficient, better than what we might experience in New York, and perfectly linked with the bus network. The key difference is going to be the price. It's a shockingly cheaper experience. A single subway ride costs a flat fare of about $1.35 with free transfers for the entire month in Seoul. With similar travel, the total transportation cost was just $50. That's 1/3 of what you'd pay for in Tokyo, and you'd be paying like $75 a month if you were using the bus in Florida, and that you'd still be paying even more for Uber rides to get you where the buses don't go. Right now, the affordability extends to the taxes as well because there's a base fare in Seoul that's around $3.50, which is cheaper than Uber, and 5-mile trip would have cost you a fortune in Tokyo, but it's more reasonably priced at about $8 to $9 in Seoul. While the subways are still the primary mode of transportation, knowing a late night taxi could be taken without destroying the budget, it's going to be a huge relief if you're over there in Seoul. So the verdict here is going to be the landslide for South Korea. It's not even close because $100 saved on transportation in Seoul is massive point in its favor. And at this point, the financial tug of war is going to be very intense because Japan took a huge lead with groceries, but Korea's cheap transit just closed the gap. And the race is going to seemingly be neck and neck because with the $30 that you save in housing in Korea, you're saving $100 in groceries in Tokyo, and you're saving $100 or $50 in Korea with transit. So you're almost about the same. It's almost what and what. And this is where the spreadsheet numbers really start to clash with the culture. How evenings and weekends are spent has a huge impact on the budget. And the social scene in Japan and South Korea pushed spending in very different directions. First, Japan, the budget eating out, coffee, and entertainment. As you see, I'm drinking 36-ounce cups of coffee in America on this show. This might be 5 or 10 cups of coffee in Seoul or Japan. So this one 36-ounce cup of coffee for me that I think I spent $25 for 100 coffee cups. So I got 136-ounce cups for $25 to make coffee at my house. But if I went to Tokyo or Japan and they were making coffee for me, I would probably have a lot of little bitty cups because they have portion control and we're greedy. I'd be like, I'm thirsty like the Sahara Desert over here, right? But if you have that eating out, coffee, entertainment in Tokyo coming up to around $350 a month, Japanese food offers incredible ranges of affordability and delicious options. They have fantastic bowls of ramen that could be had for about $7, filling curry for $8, or tashiku, or what's that? Teshoku lunch sets with fish, rice, and soup for about $10. So on average, data shows restaurant prices are about 11% cheaper in Japan, and the social life is fairly low key, often centered around izakaya or Japanese pubs, where friends share small dishes. The bill was always reasonable in this type of observation. For entertainment parks and temples that are visited, which are often free, movie tickets very pricey, around $15. US, we're like $25. So that's going to be a rare treat. Social culture is going to feel less demanding. So it's going to be normal to have a quiet night in or just meet for coffee or a couple glasses of sake. So there's not going to be constant pressure to go out and spend a bunch of money, go to an occasional karaoke spot. Now, for Seoul, this is where spending guided by local culture really changes. Spending on social life, where you're eating out in Seoul, jumps to about $500. That's $150 more dollars than in Japan. It's not that every meal is more expensive. A great local meal could still be found for about $10. The difference is going to be structure of social life. Korean social life is often built around cha or rounds. People don't just go to one place. The night starts uh, ilcha, like Korean barbecue, which might be $30 per person, then on to a bar for more drinks. Icha, after that, there are might be even a third round samcha at another bar, or a narabang or karaoke room after that. So you start off in the evening time before sunset, grabbing you a cup of coffee or two, and then after sunset dinner, and then after dinner karaoke bar, and just keep going. Each round means more spending. It's an incredibly fun way to socialize because you spend the whole afternoon with each other, sometimes falling asleep at the karaoke spot and then ending up back at the house getting drug home by whoever's the least drunk because everybody's walking because nobody brought a car. But it's an incredible way to socialize. It's going to be a big drain on the wallet though. Getting swept up in this culture causes your expenses to add up quickly. On top of that, Seoul's coffee culture is going to be very amazing, but a $5 specialty latte every day is going to add up fast as well. So the verdict for this category, based on similar experiences, is another clear win for Japan. So while individual meals might be similar in price, the culture of multi-round social Korea led to much higher spending. The more reserved social scene in Japan makes it easier to control spending with the same level of socialization. This is going to be the final major category, and that $150 savings puts Japan firmly back into the lead. And this last category is the catch of all categories for everything else that life throws at you, because a phone bill, gym membership, a new t-shirt, toiletries, all of the small things that are easy to forget but definitely add up. While not as drastic as groceries or transportation, the difference here kept telling the same story. In Tokyo, miscellaneous spending is going to be around $200 for the month. The phone plan, plenty of us might be paying about $30 a month, like Metro PCS. Local gym memberships is going to be a bit pricier, around $60 a month. The rest goes towards toiletries, household items, and little shopping things. A pleasant surprise, though, is the cost of clothes. Japan has brands like Uniqlo and Muji offering great prices at a um, basic expectation, where data shows that clothing in Japan is on average about 26% cheaper than in South Korea. A new jacket is going to be purchased without feeling like it was breaking the bank. Personal care items are also cheap and easy to find in the countless drugstores. But when you're switching to Seoul, miscellaneous spending is going to be a bit higher at $220. The phone bill there is going to be similar, close to $35. The gym membership is going to be a little bit cheaper, about $50. And where spending went up was personal care and shopping, because South Korea is a global hub for skincare, and the temptation to stock up on K beauty products is going to be real. One of the reasons why a lot of us are fawning over the Korean women is because of the skincare products, not the excessive makeup. Irony. So while individual items, buying a whole new routine adds up. It is also found that clothes from local boutiques, while stylish, were generally more expensive than in Japan, which aligns with the data. So the $20 difference isn't a game changer, but it's another small point that backs up the observed trends. So the verdict here is almost modest, but very clear of a win for Japan. So for a new pair of jeans, all the way to a phone and small savings in Japan that just keep adding up after a month of observations and tracking all of this stuff between two different worlds of exciting cities, you start wrapping yourself around the biggest question: which country is really cheaper for a remote worker on a $3,000 income? Let's lay out the cards on the table. Final breakdown side by side. In Japan, the total monthly spending is $1,802. You're going out there with $3,000, you got more than enough to cover what's got to be covered. Housing at 500, utilities 152, groceries at 400, transportation 150, hanging out and eating 350, miscellaneous stuff 200. Out of $3,000, you're left with $1,198 in savings, almost $1,200 that you can invest somewhere else, building repetitive wealth for yourself or your legacy. South Korea, the total monthly spending is going to be about $1,992, with housing being 520, utilities being 154, groceries 550, transportation 50, hanging out is 500, miscellaneous stuff 220. Out of $3,000, your budget is left with $1,006 in savings, almost $1,000 exact, which is $200 less. That final verdict is going to be clear. Very surprising. For the lifestyle in Japan, you would be saving $192 a month, almost $200 a month. And the money saved on groceries and social spending completely wipes out that South Korean advantage in the rent and transportation areas. Many articles claim that Tokyo is way more expensive than Seoul, and in some ways, they're not wrong. Some data suggests consumer prices in Tokyo can be higher, but here's the key lesson. Those big general numbers don't tell the whole story. They can't account for personal lifestyles. If a lifestyle involves eating out for every single meal, taking taxis everywhere, and needing a huge modern apartment downtown, then yeah, Tokyo will be absolutely draining the wallet faster. The data supports that. Before a remote worker who likes to cook, prefers a quieter social life, and is happier with a smaller apartment in a great neighborhood, the math completely flips. The power of Japan's affordable, high quality groceries is the biggest factor. That $150 a month savings is huge. But what say you wanted to live in either country and eat out 100% of the time with that extra $1,000 of money? If you weren't trying to save it, if you were going to use it one way or another, you could not cook squat for yourself and eat out all the time. Meet new people and find somebody to come to your house and cook for you on a regular basis. Regardless of the fact, you would find yourself in a position where with $3,000 a month, you have over $1,000 left over to cover any changes in the comfort and convenience of your life, where in America, $3,000 a month is the rent. It doesn't cover squat else, right? So with that $150 a month savings being huge, consistent advantages. The second being culture. The Japanese social scene makes it easier to stick to a budget, while Korea's vibrant, multi-round social life being fun naturally leads to higher spending. This experiment proves that the cost of living isn't a single number. It is a mix of a country's prices and one's own habits. This idea that Japan is always more expensive, it's a myth. And for certain lifestyles, that provably is very cheaper. The experiment was about more than just crunching numbers. It was about finding where a $3,000 income could provide a better life. And the answer depends entirely on what one's values are. Japan offers a life of order, tranquility, and deep cultural immersion. And it is a country that runs on precision and respect. It's for a person who's loves their quiet temples and meticulous food and the calm efficiency of the world's best train systems. It's safe, clean, and offers a real sense of peace, even in its biggest cities. And one of the things is that while we went through all of this, you could actually wrap your mind around if you were going to go to Japan and go outside of the big city limits. You could probably find a bigger housing space for a cheaper price and still find, while commuting might be a little bit more expensive, if you're not willing to walk the distance, you still might be able to find a cheaper standard of living or more amenities for the same price. Remember, riding out there with $3,000 or riding out there with a $3,000 a month budget, bringing a $6,000 a month expense, you can cover just about anything. You're prepared for the worst, hoping for the best, and taking whatever happens in between. Remembering that it's going to be in both of these countries safe, clean, and offering real sense of peace, even in that bigger city. When you go to South Korea, on the other hand, it's going to be about um, dynamism, energy, and social connection. So this is going to move at a breakneck pace. I like the slow pace. At this age, I like the slow pace, but Korea might be good for you. South Korea might be good for you. It's going to be for a person who thrives on vibrant nightlife. I'm doing my podcast at night, but if I was over there right now, it'd be daytime. I'd be asleep at night. But they do have world-class technology and a social scene that sweeps you up into its energy. It's modern, convenient, and makes it incredibly easy for a foreigner to plug in and feel part of the action. But now for the most important reality check. It is not possible to simply pack your bags and move to either country to work remote forever. The experiment was done on short-term tourism stays because as a remote worker earning money from a non-local company, one does not automatically get that long-term work visa. Both countries have recently introduced that digital nomad visa across the board, which is great news to a degree, but the requirements are going to be tough because Japan's visa requires an annual income of at least 10 million yen, which is over 65,000 US dollars, and is only valid for 6 months without a clear path to residency. South Korea's visa requires an income of more than double the country's GNI per capita and has its own strict rules. For most people, the long-term path still means getting a local job, enrolling as a student, or having family ties. So if you meet somebody over the 6-month period and you turn that into a marriage, then you're likely to live there long term. If you're going to the country, like we discussed that last week when we talked about if you were trying to get that visa, you get the 6-month visa, you come to the country, you're there for the 180 days. On your way out, you're setting up the bank account with the 6-month visa with the expectation to fly back in and start doing things. That is a way to make it work, but it's touch and go because you would have to get to the bank first thing in the morning on your 180th day try to get everything set up, hop a plane out, and then double back. It's not as easy as just showing up and doing whatever, right? If you're out there on a business visa where you're establishing a business out there, starting up a business from scratch, you might be able to pull off a 1 year uh, stay, and that would get you through the threshold because they expect you to be there for at least 6 months or longer before you can start establishing banks and other such things. But you have to realize that your first step, go there on a 3 month, work on your 6 month. If you went there on a tourist visa and then you establish your digital nomad visa, you might pull off nine months. And if you're already there for 6 with 3 more months left, you're likely to get a lot more out of your stay than what you would if you went there on just the tourist visa. See what I'm saying? Or just the digital nomad visa. It is absolutely necessary to research the legal requirements before even thinking about booking a flight, because as you've seen on TikTok, it's funny, the black girls are getting kicked out the country because they didn't renew, they didn't follow the rules, they being deported because they didn't do what they were supposed to do in a timely fashion, and they got to go. They're not going to let you linger like in America. When your time is up, you got to go. Finally, let's think long term. In both countries, a $3,000 monthly income leaves over $1,000 in savings. Even though the digital nomad is way more than a $3,000 a month income, because a $3,000 a month income is going to give you $36,000 a year. In order to get a digital nomad, to be making closer to $75,000 a year. If you're making $75,000 a year, you're making like $6,000 a month. And if you're making like $6,000 or $7,000 a month, you're able to pay double a $3,000 a month lifestyle, which means that you would have, like, if you're spending $2,000 a month or less to live, you still have $4,000 a month to invest and save, which really increases your overhead, which allows you to eat out every day, get housekeepers, own your own car, drive around, get you a chauffeur, all this other stuff, because you would have plenty of money, right? But that's going to be a serious amount of money to build wealth over time, because if that $1,000 a month is invested, a significant portfolio could be built in a decade or two. So if you're going to be out there 10 or 20 years, you can build you a large quantity of wealth. If for those thinking of putting down some roots, getting married, having children, Japan has interesting advantages there because property prices and mortgage rates are much lower than in South Korea, making it easier to buy real estate down the line. So hold on, he said, I'm just here on break to drop my like, and I will catch you later. Hey, I really appreciate you for coming by, man. Thank you. You found the right show this time. I responded to all of your comments from yesterday's show when you jumped into the wrong show. I appreciate you popping in whenever you can. But we maintain a reputation. We're always here every day of the week. So if you miss a show, you can always go back and rewatch it after you get off. That way you learn everything that needs to be learned, and then you still have the capabilities of finding other ways to maintain your job. But also take a look at some ways for you to start you some side gigs that can generate you revenue. You're not in a position where you're forever working for somebody else. Even after you get out of college, if you're able to do what you love after you get out of college and you're making enough money to cover your standard of living at the same time, you don't have to pressure yourself to find a high paying job that you love. You can get you a low paying job that offsets the portfolio that you built for yourself. If you have money making money for you on the side, you now have your standard of living covered by your side job, and you're primarily going to work because you want to. You know what I mean? If you're getting minimum wage to do something that you want to do, but you're making like 6 figures on the side, you don't need this job. You're just here because you can. And that is a whole different feeling, because you don't care about the money. When this is your livelihood, you care about the money. You're like, fuck this. If I don't get a raise, I quit. Or I'm going to work less and save my energy But if you're saving energy, you need to be investing that energy into making money somewhere else. So what's the bottom line from all of this? The cheaper country is the one that best fits your lifestyle, not just specifically the numbers that we crunched. So don't just listen to the headlines or what everyone else is saying. For a homebody who loves to cook and prefer quieter nights, Japan might be a surprise budget champion. For the social butterfly who lives for the nightlife and never says no to an invitation, Seoul might be worth the extra cost. The real cost of living is personally up to you. To help you figure out where you might land, the entire detailed budget, every single expense from both months, is going to be compiled into a spreadsheet and thrown into our membership. So if you want to take a look at that, you can always stick your nose into the membership and peek at what we put up. Now, what was the most surprising part of this breakdown? And based on your own habits, which country would you have chosen, Japan or South Korea? I kind of want a South Korean, but I also kind of want a Japanese. Also, I kind of want a Filipino, and I can't get all three of them. Probably because of the incentives in both countries, I'd probably go to Japan, and I'd probably go to Japan because I'm not really interested in the nightlife anymore. I'm more laid back guy these days. But with such a good tan, I recognize that racism is everywhere. So there will be some social stigma outside of expat zones. So when I go to, if whichever country I go to, I should probably learn the language before I get there so that I get a little bit more respect. I should learn a language before I go, but if I learn a language when I get there, it'll show me a little bit more respect. But that doesn't change the fact that's going to be another mentality that you have to have if you're going to start a legacy and you have a minority experience. You understand that the children are not going to be nearly as respectful as the adults when you start talking about differences in appearance. Your child is darker than all the other kids there. You're probably not going to get the same type of experience that you're going to get in America. Then again, you might get the exact same experience depending on where you're at. So based on your habits, you have to figure out which country you're going to get. Let me know which one you decide by putting those in the comment section. Finally, if you like the deep dives that we give you with more real life data-backed cost breakdowns from cities all over the world, make sure that you subscribe and you hit that notification bell so that you can be reinformed of all of the information that we have, because we do updates on a lot of the things that we have going on. And you never know which country we're going to end up with next, because we cover a different country every week. 52 countries or more every year, which means that we should be able to double back around by this time next year and start touching base on countries that we've already covered last year. So giving you more updates on better places to go and things to do and things to see, right? Now, the rest of the week, Thursday through Saturday, we're going to be talking about ways for us to improve ourselves. So stay tuned for all of the shows that we have listed for you. You should see the rest of the shows up there through next week. Short Monday and Tuesday, I do believe. And a couple of the shows that I was talking to you guys about on Sunday and Monday that I said that I was going to cover, you'll start seeing those shows going up for the following week. So you'll start seeing a lot of the different conversations coming up over the next few days, hopefully. And I'm going to be curating and editing some of the shows that I have missed editing over the past few days. So actually the first 15 minutes of each one of the shows is going to be edited out. And then any show that has a lot of stop gaps in it due to that network scenario, we might improve that one a little bit so that you have a smooth show outside of when we went off the air for a couple minutes. But beyond that, you're going to see like the shows are still accessible. We archive everything, so you will be able to come back and watch any show that you've missed and benefit from any information that you weren't here for when the show was live. And that helps you make better decisions at your leisure. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys for coming to the show, but start off by saying, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. Fellas, I give you guys this information to make you guys higher value men. If you find the things in your life that you do not like that are inside of your control, you start putting in the effort to change that and then navigating around the things in your life that you cannot control. Ladies, while this is a male driven podcast from the male's perspective, you too can put in effort to become higher value women. You have to find your 20-year plan, and you have to put forth the effort to make the changes that will benefit your 20-year plan. And if you can find a person with the same similar mentality, you can potentially grow with that person where you both can reach your goals twice as fast because you both are working together. Now, with that being said, I want to thank you guys for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Andrew, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Ooh, I pushed the wrong button.
Chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command.